Welcome to another edition of the Just Basketball Show. I am Brendon Kleen. That is Chris Manning. We're your hosts today. Wherever you're finding us, all podcast platforms, including YouTube, hit follow, hit subscribe, give us 5 stars. You know the deal. If you're on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we are there as well. Follow us wherever you are. Chris, we have our teams to watch for the NBA stretch run today. The break is over. Basketball is back. The long All-Star weekend that the players got their way with and means less basketball in our lives for a longer period of time. That is over. There's news to get to first. And we're going to do a taste test, which is not what you normally get on a basketball show, but we're going to do that as well of a certain All-Star sponsor. So we'll have a very packed show. The first thing, though, is over in Atlanta, where head coach Nate McMillan of the Atlanta Hawks was fired today, or Tuesday? Wednesday? I don't even remember when it happened at this point, but he will not be coaching the team down the stretch run of the season. I don't think this was shocking, Chris, in terms of the fact that McMillan wouldn't be the coach next season. Mm-hmm. I think the interesting part is doing it now and where they go next.
I think it is incredible that they made a coaching firing like that late into the All-Star break. They didn't do it like on Friday or Saturday. They like waited. And like I don't totally understand the logic behind that. You know, they are off until Friday. They'll be beating a team in Cleveland that's on the second night of a back-to-back for that first game. So, like, they're set up, like, to have, like, a relatively, you know, structured schedule coming out of the break here. I just don't understand, like, why you wait. And, like, I also just at this point, even maybe things are so bad and we don't know that, but I just don't understand maybe not even waiting until the end of the season. Like you said, like I could absolutely see him not being the coach next year, and then maybe they're the team that goes to hire Ime Udoka, as complicated as that is going to be, or they go after a Kenny Atkinson, or they go after someone that maybe they really listen to Trae and his camp and lead into that, and that could be very ill-advised. But I don't understand doing this unless you're just like, okay, the new coach bump, the interim bump will get us through the season. Maybe we make some noise in the play and we regroup in the offseason. I just don't understand this. And Brendon, this is maybe a slightly hotter take. This feels like a very kind of lost, kind of very not pointless, but very just kind of blah season for the Atlanta Hawks.
Well, that's the part that kind of, in terms of the timing, is interesting, right? Because this is not like, it's a lost season in terms of they're not where they want to be in the standings, right? They are 29-30. They're the 8 seed in the East. They're not even really close to the 7 seed. That is really a 7-team conference, and they're not one of the 7. So, like, you're not getting where you want to go despite the DeJounte trade. So that's all fine, but you still have, like, games you want to win, right? And like they're putting Joe Prunty as their interim head coach, who is a lifer assistant. You know, I think he's been an interim coach before. I just don't see, are you just telling the players in that locker room that this season is a lost cause and it's over? And I think that message being sent is pretty noteworthy. You mentioned some of the names. Quinn Snyder could be one. I think there's something to the idea of being the first team on the market. You can start interviews sooner. You can put the feelers out and get the agents' attention and all that stuff. I think Atlanta is still a decent place to coach, although I don't know if you agree with that. I mean, Trae has now gone through 2 coaches in his first 5 seasons. But the timing is definitely interesting. Who would you want them to go after, though? And do you feel like a top candidate like a Quinn Snyder would want to come to Atlanta, considering all the craziness that's been there during Trae's career?
Before I answer that, here I think there's a more important question to ask on top of that. And it is, I think, how much does this reflect on Trae Young? And is Trae Young willing to be something different than he's been to date? Is Trae Young willing to give up some of the on-ball stuff, to do some more off-ball stuff, to change the way he plays, to become a guy that isn't have to be heliocentric and want to do everything himself? That is going to be like, if you hire Kenny Atkinson, what we understand about Kenny Atkinson, let's say, is ball movement and team-oriented play and something that empowers the entire roster around them. Trae Young is a great passer, but sometimes it doesn't always feel to me like he's empowering in that way. And I think you need to get him to buy in and sacrifice for others before I can tell you I understand this coaching hire. Because if I'm a coach and I want to play a way that is not just centered around that one guy and is going to involve an evolution, which I think would make them better, which I absolutely think would make them better. It would make Trae a better player to sacrifice some. Every great player to some degree has sacrificed. Like they just do. It's part of it when you want to win at the highest level in the NBA. That clouds any kind of opinion I have on who they should hire. I think there are definitely some good candidates. There's probably assistants we are not fully even aware of, that'll get some buzz. Maybe there's someone like on Denver, like I know Jordi Fernandez is was an assistant there. He's with Sacramento now, I believe, but he's interviewed before. And like maybe there's someone like a hot coordinator or something on one of these other really good teams that you look at. But
yeah.
My whole question here just comes back to what is Trae Young and what is he going to look like as we go forward here? That none of this other stuff matters unless I know I'm getting a version of Trae Young that is probably doing a little bit more to empower the others around him than he, I think, is at times the way he plays. Is that unreasonable?
No, it's not unreasonable at all. I think that I guess there's probably some people who still feel like Trae Young is a really big difference maker, but I think he's a little bit different than some of the perception versus reality guys we have in the league, like Westbrook or, whoever you want to throw out there who maybe has a little more like Kyrie, who has like a little more fans than he actually does like supporters within the game type of thing. Trae's never really won. He had that year where they went to the conference finals. Cannot take that away from him. That was far and away the best he's ever looked, and that team put it together and won big games and did everything that they needed to do. But Trae's been the same player for 3 years. If you look statistically, if you look at basically since they made the playoffs that season, the next 2 years, they haven't really been a winning team. His three-point shooting has been a big story this year in the fact that it's dipped. But, he's basically been 27 or so points, 10 or so assists, 4 or so turnovers, and, 58 to 60 true shooting percentage. Like he's really just been the same guy. The usage rate, the assist rate, all is the same. Like that's the kind of crazy part to me, separate from how he evolves. It's the fact that he just hasn't evolved and he's only 24 years old. This is a part of your career where you should be getting better and changing. I think in terms of the usage, in terms of playing a better style, whatever way you want to put it, when I see the names of the coaches that they put out there, Chris, I do kind of feel optimistic that they're targeting the right kinds of guys. Pierce and McMillan are somewhat similar in that they are, I believe Pierce was more of a defense-first guy. McMillan definitely is. They didn't have much in the way of an offensive system. Even McMillan in Indiana didn't really have that, right? And now he's not been able to integrate Murray with Trae. I think Snyder, Udoka, if he ends up being a candidate, although he hasn't really been in the initial batch of reports, somebody like Atkinson, those guys are all going to focus on getting the ball moving, using him more as a shooter and off-ball player. It's going to be about buying in with him, but I do think he's going to get one last chance here to get a coach who maybe can think up a scheme a little bit better for him before all of the criticism starts to be headed his way. A lot of it already is. If he can't make it work with one more guy who maybe is a little more offensive-minded, then it really is going to start to be what comes next for Trae Young's career.
Yeah. The name that I will say, if I were to pick a name, it's Quinn Snyder. I think he was one of the best coaches in the league his entire run in Utah. Runs really awesome stuff that people smarter than me on the tactics have broken down over and over again. I think was a really big
part. Well, and he has multiple ball handlers, right? That's a lot of the thing that I think you would get excited about with Murray and Trae is like he's had Mitchell and Conley. He's had Hayward and Mitchell, or I guess they never played together. Or Hayward and Ingles, like we've seen it.
Yeah, well, and maybe you're gonna hit me with the buzzer here. Our producer Jake Stevens is gonna just
this will be the first one. You're good.
Okay, but the way Donovan Mitchell has talked about Quinn Snyder this year, and like a lot has mentioned the help in his development and what they did and setting him up for success. Like he would be an incredible coach to whoever gets him next. He's a guy that I think could be a guy that is it wouldn't shock me if he has kind of like the Mike Budenholzer thing where maybe, I don't know if it's Atlanta necessarily, but he's going to maybe be somewhere after he's been 1-2 other places and win a title because he's that kind of coach. He's that kind of guy. I think he's that good of a coach, and he would absolutely be at the top of my list. I think Atkinson makes sense. I think if you have Trae, you should go all in on the offensive side. You really should. Like, there's not a reason not to. Like, when you have Trae Young, I think it's going to be really hard to ever be like a top 10 defense, even if you have good rim protectors and all these wings and all that stuff. you should just like lead. Like, look at how the success Denver is having, and Jokic is much, much better than Trae Young. But that is an offensive first team. Lean into it. Lean into your strengths.
Yeah.
I think that's what you have to do. And I would be. I think Snyder would make a ton of sense. I think Atkinson would make a ton of sense. I'm sure there are others as well, and particularly
it's just good to see that they have the same types of guys in mind, right? That those kind of coaches all are in the same mold. Like, I think that tells us more than maybe it. We'll see who it ends up specifically being, but they know they need to pivot. They have a new front office. Landry Fields is running things. We'll see. I do think Larry Brown with the Iverson Sixers kind of screwed this up, Chris, where it's like you have your one-man show on offense, and then the perception is like, okay, we got to get our defense around him. And it's like, no, I think I kind of agree with you. It's like, just go where your strengths are. Yes, you want to find some role players that are going to defend a little more than Trae does, but your strength is going to be offense. Just do that. Figure it out. Let's move on to not a very happy story. A much sadder story than Nate McMillan, although I guess he's probably pretty upset. But Lonzo Ball ruled out for the season. We've mentioned it here and there, I think, on the show, just our kind of sadness with Lonzo. This guy has not played basketball, has not played an NBA game since January 14th, 2022. He's never played more than 63 games in his career. You had Tristan Thompson, I don't know if you saw this, Chris, going around. I don't know. I guess he's like has an ESPN deal. He went and talked about how there's like no precedent, that he's heard murmurings that there's like no precedent for what they're seeing when they put Lonzo's knee under the microscope. I don't know if Tristan Thompson is necessarily correct there.
He also
but it
was
adds
like
up to what we've heard. Right?
He also was like Tristan Thompson newsbreaker was also like talking to Kevin Love the other day. He's like, my brother. Like, I'm like, is he just in the media now? This is very weird. But
he seems to be a guy that wheels and deals. If you look at his romantic history, so I think it's understandable.
Okay, wow.
He knows people. I'm not going there. I'm just saying Tristan's out here.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that fair?
No, that's extremely fair.
Okay,
that's gonna be a quote. That's gonna be a quote graphic. Tristan Thompson is very out there, and it's gonna be like
Tristan is out here. I don't think so. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I don't want people to think of me that way.
Yeah, that's gonna be our next TikTok. Is just Tristan Thompson. But the Lonzo thing is, when you have repeated reports that this guy like can't walk up a flight of stairs, and like all this stuff, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, of course he was never going to play this season in this situation, right? Like, that was never going to happen if he was in this case. He has obviously been injured. The Duncy's had injury concerns, and that's hampered his career. But, like, this is the kind of injury that changes how we could think of him. And, like, I think of Lonzo as a guy that if he's healthy and on the floor for you, he can be a top 7 guy in your rotation. I love the way he plays. He's got great size, defends multiple positions, has developed into a good shooter, like does everything you want. He's not a superstar, not an all-star, but like a really, really good winning basketball player that could contribute to really good teams. And like if this knee injury feels like it's going to just change any chance of that manifesting in the fullest way possible. And like whether that's was going to be at the Bulls, whether he ended up somewhere else, like that is it's taking away like a really, really good NBA player. And like I don't know how you can look at him going forward and say like I think he'll be back next year. Like there's just no reason to be sure that he's ever going to be the same, much less like put together full seasons anymore. That's how severe this feels to me from looking on the outside in.
Yeah, I love Lonzo Ball. I think he is one of the players in the NBA that can probably do the most with the least. And help your team without being hyper involved on offense. And that's just a rare thing. There's only a few players who you feel in the course of a game, moment to moment, who doesn't even generate a lot of assists. Like it's not even that he's just like a pass first guy. I mean, he sort of is, but he doesn't tally up 15 assist games, like he's at 7 assists a game is his career high. He just has this way of filling in and fitting in with whoever he's playing with. I think it's an underestimated part of why Chicago has fallen off this year. We talk so much about the guys they have playing worse. It's like, well, they're also missing just like the ultimate kind of glue player. And so that's just a bummer. It's not a guy who you're talking about. Kevin Durant, for instance, he tears his Achilles. Is he ever going to get back to what he was? It's like Lonzo just being out there is so impactful, even if he could have just gotten on the court, let alone being at full strength, and he hasn't even been able to do that for 13 months now. So he has 2 years left on this contract, Chris, $42 million. There is a player option. I think we can feel pretty confident he's going to pick that up, given the status of his body right now. You're just at a point, I think, with him where it's like, does he sign another contract? And it's not just because of this, right? He's had these concerns. I mentioned he's only ever played 63 games. That's the most he's played in a season. So it's not like this is new. You're getting to the territory of, is this a player who is going to play another contract beyond this, or is he going to be a problem physically and kind of not be able to sustain a career? And it's just, for such a fun player, it would be a really bad note for it to go out on. I hope it doesn't get there.
Yeah, and I don't even know what the Bulls do here. Like, do you just like eat this out and let it run out? Do you try to like trade him to a team? Like, do you call the Hornets and be like, hey, do you want the other ball, brother? You want the third? You have the other one in your G League team, I believe, and you have LaMelo. Like, do you want him? And you're going to be bad anyway. Like, maybe it works out for you, and like at least you're like you can say, hey, we have all the Ball brothers. Like, do you do like? I don't know what they do here. Like, they're in a bad situation.
They are. They probably. Well, they're going to be in a bad situation either way, though, right? From a cap standpoint, unless they really tear it down, which I kind of don't expect them to do, because another knee guy, Levine. Not sure that you're going to get much for him. So, what were you going to say?
No, it's all bad.
Well, what I was going to point out is I think they'll probably keep him through the summer, see if he can play next season, and then it does start to get to that point of, do you just try to dump him to get the money off of your books? Maybe it gets to like you cut him to a team with cap space who can you trade him to a team with cap space who can cut him. But I think they wait it out and try to see if he can be ready for training camp next year. And if that checkpoint doesn't happen, is when you really start to raise the alarm. Chris, the moment we have been waiting for, our audience didn't know it was waiting for it. Are you ready to bust out the very, I think, surprising new sponsor that even as the three-point contest was unfolding and the special ball on the right and left wing was named after this soft drink, I think people didn't even realize it existed. So in that way, the marketing worked. We're going to help them with the marketing. We're going to do a STARRY taste test. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm not a big pop guy. The only pop I really drink is like a ginger ale every now and then, or like an Arnold Palmer, which doesn't really count. I'm looking at like I'm looking at like the cat.
Oh boy, yeah, don't say it. We're trying to make them sound good. We can't be putting the sugar content out there.
Sure.
Did you?
There is a zero sugar.
Do you know
option.
There is. I don't love caffeine-free soft drinks in general because it kind of feels to me like it's defeating the point. Like if I'm gonna have one, I want it to energize me a little bit. Maybe that's just me. Okay, did you see the slogan for this thing too?
I saw the ad with
Kiki Palmer.
No, with and Tyrese Maxey. I was trying to think of the NBA player.
Maxey,
Tyrese, yeah,
standing on the court at the bottom.
Yeah, I was like, good job, good for you, Tyrese Maxey, being in an ad with Kiki Palmer.
He gets the press from. Okay, the slogan is "It hits different," so that is the status we have to hold it to. Hits different, I guess, than Sierra Mist, because that's what it's replacing. Sierra Mist was a fixture of our childhoods. It is gone. It's dead. It's over. Apparently, this is going to taste dramatically different and hit different for us as well. All right, I think we should make this a little bit ASMR-ish.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah, it feels like yours was flat. That's what it sounded like there a little bit.
Well, then I'm getting gypped. I'm getting gypped in the Midwest. All right, let's do this together. 3, 2, 1. Cheers. That tastes like how I remember Sprite tasting.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mountain Dew. It's kind of the same thing. It does have a little more crackle. I feel like it might be a little more carbonated, and you can kind of see the bubbles if people are on YouTube.
Mountain, oh man, you have to pay me a lot of money to drink a Mountain Dew at this point.
Have you ever had a Mountain Dew?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a 29-year-old man who like absolutely like went through like a Mountain Dew phase because in like high school, because everyone does, but it's been a long time.
Okay. I was going to say, I thought you meant in general you couldn't pay you enough, like you've never tasted one, and I was going to say that's next week, but okay.
No, God.
Yeah.
Man. I think I might like
this is I don't think it hits that different. I think I'm giving it like a C a C, just a straight up average. I don't hate it. I'm not gonna like throw it away. I'll probably finish the bottle because why not? But I'm not gonna tell people to come try it.
I mean, they can sponsor the show.
Yeah, they can absolutely sponsor the show. I think we might have ruined our opportunity on that, though, unfortunately.
I think that great.
If we wanted the sponsorship, we would have had to. Oh my goodness, this is the best soft drink I've ever had in my entire life. I love it so much. Everybody go buy it.
Yeah, I would do that for like a Canada Dry.
Canada Dry, come sponsor Just Basketball. All right.
Look. I have Brendan. Here's the thing, and you will learn. I have like some old man tendencies, and ginger ale is one of them. That's the quote graphic. It's just me Photoshop with like a Canada Dry or like a Seagram's, you know.
So your reputation is boring sodas, and mine is criticizing celebrities I've never met like I know them.
Yeah, you know what?
That's what we're going for here.
No, but like that's one of my stocks in life, I guess. You know, like that's just one of the realities.
You know what I had for the first time on a plane recently was because I've been really into LaCroix, and that's my old man drink of choice.
Love a sparkling, love a LaCroix. Yeah.
So I had a sparkling water, like I ordered one, but not flavored on a plane for the first time. That felt very old-fashioned and like I aged myself a little bit, but I enjoyed it. It's nice on a plane because you're kind of like, you get all muggy and weird on a plane and you just need something to like kind of spice things up, and then you get the carbonation, but you don't have to feel weird about the sugar or whatever, and It was perfect. So look, I'm not that far from you. I'm not going to be powering through Starries on the regular at all.
So this is an NBA related plane story. I wish I would have had that sparkling water when 2021, you and I were in Vegas together for Summer League?
Yes.
Okay. So on the flight out there, the two people next to me got on a Spirit flight, got absolutely trashed on like jalapeno margaritas.
Oh, nice.
And I just like put my head down and was like, I want to go to bed. This is like, I'm tired. Planes are gross. And like, they were just like crushing like some snack mix and jalapeno margaritas. And like, I really would have just like a nice like sparkling water, like plain at that point. Like an Ambien.
I did not know. Yeah, exactly. Crunch up like a pill, put it in the. I didn't know that Spirit Airlines did margarita. I didn't know they did alcohol. Period.
Jalapeno margarita specifically was the only kind of margarita they had, and I was just like, okay, here we go.
Maybe that's a special for the trip to the Southwest from the Midwest, just to get people ready, because I doubt you guys have much jalapeno going on in Cleveland. So
I'm gonna when you come for the Final Four, the women's Final Four, which I'm just gonna keep saying just to get it out in the universe.
I bought a ticket yesterday. I'm there.
Okay, for next year. I don't think you can buy plane tickets that far in advance. I'll take you to some, I think, very good Mexican spots in Cleveland, and there's some jalapeno there, and then you can tell me how bad the tacos are in the Midwest, and I'll be like, okay, that's fair.
I'll see. I have a very high standard, but
I mean, you should.
Speaking of Phoenix, this is a good jumping off point. Our top 3 teams to watch for the NBA stretch run. I will give people the background that the 2 of these from you and I were the same. I think I'm going to sub in our backup here to have. So we'll get to 5. We can't quite get to 6 because there are just. The Phoenix Suns are undeniable. They have to be at the top of everybody's list, whether you live in Phoenix like I do or you don't even care about the NBA most of the time. You know the Phoenix Suns are the biggest story. Chris, I'm curious what you think, because we've never in the history of the NBA seen a team add a player who was their best player in February, mid-season, and go on to win a title. We've had a couple where great players joined and went on to win, but never this level to experiment and get the team ready to make a championship run in 6 weeks. What do you think about the Suns over the stretch run here?
So first, I want to just say, go if you want more Brendon Kleen, Locked On Suns. Great job over there, daily covering everything going on there. It's a great podcast. But what I think is that you're right in that it is just like an experiment like we've never seen, and it's Kevin Durant, who before he gets injured was playing at an MVP level. I think you felt pretty strongly that he might have been your MVP pick at a certain point, right? Like he was just playing at an absurd level. And if he's healthy and you have all these scores and like they're specifically kind of designed in some ways to like, you know, maybe like torture the 3-time MVP based on how he defends. And there's like all these things that if it just goes the right way and the legacy on the line for Durant and Chris Paul and all this stuff, like there's just nothing quite like this that we've ever seen. And like, it's not wrong, I think, to look at them and say that's the favorite in the West now. Like, if everything breaks right for them, like, this team could be that good right now. And like, I think of Durant, and I don't think there's like an acclimation period. Like, he's just going to be fine. And like, those guys are going to like obviously build chemistry over time. But like, Durant's one of the guys that one of his superpowers is just making it really easy to play with him. Like, that's just one of the things he's great at. I think the offense will be great right away. I'll be fascinated to watch DeAndre Ayton and just kind of seeing what kind of you get out of him down the stretch run. But this team's going to be awesome. And there's I don't know if you don't think this team is like the most interesting storyline the rest of the way and how they look and how it all works, I don't know if you like basketball. Like, that's where I end up on this. Like, this team is going to be fascinating every single night. And, we're getting reporting today that it looks like Durant's targeted return date is March 1. He's going to get that gives him like over a month of regular season play with Book, with CP3, with Phoenix before the playoffs. And like, that month is that 6 weeks, whatever it is, I will be tuning into as many Phoenix Suns games as I possibly can to catch everything.
They're going to be like, this is, how they used to put Jordan on national TV. All the Bulls games toward the end were on national TV on cable.
Sure,
they could do that with these Suns, and I think people would tune in. I'm warning you now, my level of anxiety and nervousness is probably going to escalate as the spring continues and we do this show together because of all of this. 20 games is just not a lot, but that's what they're set up to do. If anybody is going to break that precedent and be the first superstar to mesh that quickly and make it all happen and win, I think it's going to be Kevin Durant. I have a question on the Durant side of things, Chris. There was a lot of back and forth with Barkley and blah, blah, blah about trade demands and everything else. Less interested in that. More interested in this is going to be a fourth version of Durant. I think the Warriors version was probably the closest comparison of fitting into something. I think the Thunder version was just going all out, production, box score stuffing, 30-plus points a game, winning an MVP, doing everything. And then the Nets version was sort of like that, actually, but probably even not probably less talent around him, all things considered, with the injuries that happened to the co-stars. And he was still excellent. Which of the versions of Durant has been your favorite, and which of the ones do you think is going to be closest to what we see in Phoenix?
That's a good question. Golden State Durant was really unfair.
Yeah, you have maybe a little bit of a. You're probably not going to pick that one. I think maybe.
Is it wrong to say like I kind of want to say it's OKC?
That was where I was leaning. I was either thinking that, or I was going to say this version of him on the Suns, just because Booker is such a unique type of player that I guess like Harden and OKC is kind of similar to what Booker is now. But I'm interested to see that layer to it. But as far as what we've already seen, I loved those Oklahoma City teams. I thought they were so fun, even though it was not a perfect fit with him and Russ, and the roster was always a little awkward. I love that. So I think that's a great pick.
But I think the version we're probably most likely to see is probably Brooklyn, right? Like, I think there's maybe elements of OKC, but think about like he's playing with Kyrie. That's a ball dominant guy in the way he's playing with Book. Chris Paul is going to do a lot for him as well. And it'll like be his team like without it kind of maybe always feeling like, it's Book's. That's like a tricky way to answer this, but like I think like the tug of war between him and Book will be a little different than him and Kyrie, because like Book is so much more established with Phoenix and with Monty Williams and with everyone else on the team in a way Durant isn't, and Kyrie wasn't in Brooklyn, even with the 1 year kind of advantage. But I think OKC's the most fun one. But I think with how he's evolved, how skilled he is now, like just how much better he gets year over year over year, I think it has to be the Nets one is kind of the most likely going to see. He's going to take on a ton. It's not going to be like Golden State where like he doesn't have it. Like he still has a lot to do there, but it's not nearly as much as he maybe was doing with Brooklyn. He's going to need to be a two-way monster in the way he would have needed for Brooklyn to win a title if this is going to work. So I think so. I think it's Brooklyn.
I think you're probably right, although by the end of the Golden State run, that defense was a pretty close comparison to what we might see, because he really was a rim protector for that team, and he'll have to be that for the Suns, because they're going to have to play defense differently. Losing Mikal Bridges, the way we know the Suns defense worked, the reason it was so effective at times was Bridges running through screen. At least their pick and roll defense. Bridges running through screens, Ayton dropping into the paint, and then they have smart IQ defenders helping from the outside. They made it very simple on their players because they didn't have a lot of size. They didn't have a lot of talent. That's going to look different. They're going to allow penetration more than they used to because Bridges isn't there. And so then the question becomes, yes, what does Ayton do? I feel pretty trustworthy that he's going to be able to continue to be at his pace. But if you're inviting that interior scoring, you need more protection, and Durant is going to have to do that. So it's going to be pretty fun to see how he mixes in the Booker angle, everything else. That is Book's team. This is Wade welcoming LeBron to Miami much more than it is anything else. But on court, it's going to be a pretty different type of mix. I have one last Suns question for you, Chris. Do they need, because we've talked about health, we did our X factors. Chris Paul was the first guy we talked about. Do they need a healthy Chris Paul to win a championship? If I told you Chris Paul gets a hamstring injury in the conference finals and he misses the last 3 games of that series and all of the finals, would you tell me that the Suns could still win a championship?
I tend to think they need a very, very good Chris Paul. I don't know if it's like the Chris Paul you even got 2 years ago, because Durant's going to shoulder so much, and they have all these other kind of, and Book's going to shoulder a bunch, and Durant really just takes on so much for you. But I think they need a Chris Paul, like a really good performance to like maybe defend Jamal Murray if they play Denver, and maybe like just make enough mid-range shots and keep the ball moving and do enough. Like, they need Chris Paul to do enough. I think they need him healthy, even if he's not playing at that like peak Chris Paul level that we saw when they made that finals run, and maybe the wheels come off a little bit there. Like, he has to be a very, very good version of himself and be available, I think, for Phoenix to win. Campaign has been like a really nice for them when he's been healthy. Booker and Durant will shoulder some of the playmaking. There's no like replacing what Chris Paul is going to provide, and I think that's a really tricky thing to navigate. If he's hurt, their team is just different, and it's just another tricky thing.
I think you would see the impact mostly on Ayton if Chris Paul wasn't able to play.
Absolutely.
I think you would see him probably not be as impactful, and then you're just kind of trickling down. I think the one of the key questions is just going to be who plays, and that'll be a smaller thing that maybe, it just will get itself figured out. But in the regular season, as people are watching, you're going to see all 15 people, I think, get a chance at this, and it'll be kind of interesting to see who those 6 through 10 end up being. Really, 5 through 10. We don't even know who the 5th starter will be. All right, I basically threw the Suns out there. They were on both of our lists, but I'll let you throw the next one out there.
Okay, so I'm going to go to a team that is also on your list, because I think this is just like if you're deep in the weeds and paying attention, I think the Orlando Magic have to be on this list. There are other teams in the East we could pick. Like, I think you can make it like Philly would be sort of interesting, all of that stuff, right? But if you want to look at a team that has to get on it on them now and think about what they're going to be going forward, they add another lottery pick. They have really, really good young players. It's the Orlando Magic. Like, this is a team on the year that, they're only 25th in net rating. Like, their offense is 26. Like, it's not a good team, like on paper. Last 2 weeks before play resumes, 10th in point differential, 6th in defense, 21st in offense. So the offense is still very much like a work in progress. That's going to kneecap anything that happens here. And like, there are obviously like some questions about some of these young guys, but it's like Paolo is going to win Rookie of the Year. He's awesome. Franz remains awesome. Markelle Fultz is a highlight at night. That's a really good player now. Like, this team has stuff. They have things I think you should like, and I think this is a team that like it would be a really big deal for them if they could get into even if they just get one play-in game, right? I don't. This team is not going to like be the 8th seed and like push the Celtics. Like they would get wrecked if they get Boston or Milwaukee in round 1, or whoever gets 1 or 2 there in the East, right? But if they could just get like a play-in game this year, and Paolo and Franz and these guys get to like play, like the Heat or something, or then even the Nets, like a team that's like a little older than them, a little more advanced, that's a big deal. And look, there's a lot of ground to catch up. They're 4 games back of the 10th place Raptors, okay? I don't know if they're going to get there. But the way their defense has been playing, the upside of their young guys, they feel like they have something to play for in a way that maybe Indiana or like the Bulls, the wheels are coming off there. Like this team is going to be really fun to watch the rest of the way. Get in on the ground floor now. The Orlando Magic are coming for something real.
Downer, I think, for them in that play-in race is that aside from Indiana, nobody's really going to be okay with losing ahead of them. You know, Atlanta, Miami, who you mentioned, Washington, Toronto, Chicago, those are the other teams ahead of them besides the Pacers. All those teams are going to also be trying to win, and they're a little bit back on the pack. I think just making 10 would be a huge accomplishment, and it would speak to some genuine, they would have to be a good team, not just like frisky. They would have to be significantly above 500 the rest of the way to make that happen. They're 19-15 since they started 5-20. That stat's been thrown around a ton, and that's a long time, 34 games. So they have it in them, but they just have a little bit of a problem in terms of the standings. I don't think there's a single player on this roster that I don't like watching. I love Wendell Carter.
Yep.
I love Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs has been super fun lately. That dude is a genuine 1-5 defender already.
Yeah, if his offense is just kind of a bummer because it's just really going to limit what he can kind of be. But the dude, I know, but I know, but it's just some of the offensive stuff you maybe thought coming out of Gonzaga just maybe hasn't happened as soon as you would have liked, and that's kind of a bummer. But he's an absolute menace defensively, absolutely just a menace.
Yeah, he has some bad turnovers. He'll take some weird shots, but he has just a physicality and kind of force to his game that's just there's just not another player like Jalen Suggs in the NBA. And that's kind of a lot of this roster, the way that those, the Magic front office gets made fun of. They were the guys who used to be in Milwaukee that drafted Giannis, and they have a type, right? But it's kind of working. And they just, the way that they put this together, Jonathan Isaac is back. Gary Harris is now starting. He was hurt at the beginning of the year, and he's been a nice just sort of glue guy, connector, shooter, spacer for them. And then obviously Wagner and Banchero. I'm curious what you think about this sentence about the Orlando Magic. They already have their number 1 and number 2 on the roster, and they are just waiting for them to get good enough to start winning.
I think it's on the right track. I think what they could do in the draft next year will be interesting because they have that Bulls pick that's top 4 protected. They have their own pick, which should be the 5th worst in the league right now. So you could come away with 2 more top 10 picks. That what you do with that? Do you make a trade? A lot of people have mentioned this, so I'm not even ball handling. It's ball handling. They need an adult point guard ball handler type. People have said this and offered this take. I don't know if I fully agree because I don't know if they were ready to accelerate with him in that same way. But some people are they should have been a team that called on Donovan Mitchell and made a play for that and used their chips to get into that conversation. And I can see the logic and they should be calling on Fred VanVleet this summer. They should be in the market for a point guard type or a guard type that becomes available on the trade market. Maybe use one of their picks. Maybe they, looking at this draft, do they take, one of the Thompson twins? Is there a Nick Smith at Arkansas who fits? These guys are really young, and there's some concerns, I think, with maybe adding another young guy or too many young guys, especially if you like Suggs, you like Fultz. But you could do some interesting things with those picks and accelerate things and go find an adult to kind of play with them a little bit. I don't think that's this team is not far off if Paolo and Franz continue on the upward trajectory. It won't be linear, obviously. I don't think this team is a title contender next year or the year after or anything like that. But Paolo is going to be awesome. Franz is going to be really, really good. They have the foundation. I don't think you're wrong to say that those 2 guys could be their best guys when whatever this ends up being, they're at their apex. That would not be surprising at all. It would be very funny if they were the team that won the Wembanyama thing, though. I would say that. That would be hello.
To get the opportunity to draft Giannis and Wemby, those Hammond and whatever the other guy's name is, they would need to be put into the Hall of Fame in the very next class, I think, because that would be crazy. I think that what the Magic really need, I agree with you on ball handling, although I kind of like the idea of leaning into the wing ball handling, be a little bit like what Boston is, right? With everything kind of
But imagine like Fred VanVleet as like the veteran point guard with Fultz and Suggs your supplementary guards. You could do the Boston thing very much with VanVleet as your point guard. You absolutely could.
And that's where I was going. I think it kind of has to be a combo, right? Like VanVleet's not a point guard, really. You know, he's like a combo guard who's short. And so I think, like, I look at the guys, like, this is not me saying that it's reasonable, but it's just like, if I could put anybody in the league to finish off their starting lineup, if we assume Fultz is an answer there and Suggs factors in too, like Desmond Bane. Like, put him just a killer shooter who can do enough with the ball in his hands, but also kind of fits with the physicality and length of the rest of that team. So I don't know. The Magic are going to be fun. I really do expect to watch quite a bit of them this season. I will move on to my final team because the Magic, like you said, were on my list as well. New Orleans Pelicans. Maybe not for the reasons of I'm going to be tuning in every day, Chris. I'm not gonna lie that I plan to watch a lot of this team if they don't get healthy. But that's really the question. I think it starts with, does Zion come back and when? And then all of the ripple effects off of that. Sure. This is starting to feel like a team to me, and we talked about Zion recently when the update came out, that it might just not have an opportunity to gel, because one of the things that happens when you get all these picks, you make the trades, you have 1 million draft picks and all the assets in the world, quote unquote, is the timeline gets fast. Like it quickens whether you want it to or not, because you got 3 young guys coming in every year, or you have to make a decision on how to get rid of that, right? Like it's cool that they have Dyson Daniels and Herb Jones and Trey Murphy on top of Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson and everything else. And we don't even know how they're going to play all their good players. But like, that starts to create pressure, and they're already projected to be in the luxury tax next season. I just wonder if they don't get to find out what they are this season, or it comes together too late, if they already have to start looking at making some changes just to condense this roster down. And that's just a crazy situation to be in without even getting to see these guys actually play competitive basketball together really at all. I'm not sure if the 3 of them have still ever played a game together.
And you just need Zion. Like, Zion is the fuel of whatever this is going to be. I like the McCollum trade was really good for them, I think. Like, I think like they have a lot of guys I really like. Like Larry Nance Jr. has been really great for them. You know, like the Herb Jones, like Trey Murphy's good. Like, they have a lot of guys that you just said, like, we like. But it's like this team is just like, you need Zion. Like, Zion is what elevates you. Zion is your superstar. Zion is the guy that if this is going to work, it's going to be dependent on him. And like, this is a team that's like 10th on the year in net rating. Their win differential is like much lower, which would lead you to think that they're better than kind of their win-loss record. And even the past 2 weeks, like 15th in point differential, like a little positive, 14th in offense, 15th in defense. But it's like they're just kind of like fine. And like, I think with the talent, the money, the pressure, it's like you think they maybe should be more than fine. And maybe some of that's the early season success. Maybe the early season success pushes them in a direction that makes us get to this point. Because I agree with you, they are going to be interesting. My interest is just lessened unless Zion is back and healthy and just like destroying the world again. Because he is what will take this team, whether it's this year, next year, into a team that can make a deep playoff run. It has to be. It's Zion is that piece to get them there. Ingram's great, McCollum's great, all that stuff, but it's about Zion.
Yeah, they steadied themselves after losing a bunch in a row. I think we brought up on the show that they were 30th in offense for a couple of weeks there. Ingram came back and finally started to get on track, and that's why they've kind of gotten back to 500 over the past couple of weeks, as well as like total on the season. But yeah, my interest, again, it's not that I'm going to be tuning in and saying they're great without Zion. It's, do they get Zion? And then what happens as a result of that? It's more just like a big picture team to watch. But if Zion comes back and plays, and they are able to play like they did at the beginning of the season and integrate Ingram, who wasn't around for those times with the toe injury, would you take them over? Well, let me start with Minnesota. If they get that version of their team and Ingram comes back, you would take them over Minnesota?
Yeah, That's maybe an episode to do, and maybe that's where we get like a Minnesota guest to come on and like talk to us through what's going on there. But yeah, I love Ant, and this is good. Like, we probably should have put Karl Anthony Towns on our most interesting players list, like, because he has so much to prove the rest of the year, really. But yeah, I'm not like in love with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Love Anthony Edwards. I think that team's pretty solid when they have it going. Their offense can be tough. They just don't have the juice without Towns a lot of nights. But Kyle Anderson's been really helpful for them. Mike Conley's been good, and Ant has just...
It's just like here's look, Mike Conley's awesome, but it's like your season's in trouble when you're like, we need to get Mike Conley just to make things normal. Like that is a weird place to be if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think.
I'm not saying the Timberwolves are going to win the championship. We're talking about the play-in, but
that's on the next quote. That's on the next quote graphic, is like Minnesota championship.
Okay. Yeah, so Tristan Thompson, the old man, Seagrams, and then we're really advertising ourselves well. I think the Warriors are the next one then, right? We don't know about Steph, but assuming he comes back. If they just look like they look at times with Steph, New Orleans or Golden State?
Probably Golden. I mean, it's Golden State. Like, I would pick them. We did get a Curry update. He's doing some non-contact work, so we'll see kind of what that looks like when he returns, but, seems closer than not. But I would take Golden State. Just the championship equity would lead me to Curry and co there.
Draymond guarding Zion would be pretty...
Sign me up.
Part of that is to say the West play-in is going to once again be pretty crazy and fun. Part of that is to say the Pelicans, again, to reiterate, might end up in a situation where they do not get much time to really judge this team. They didn't have Zion in the playoffs last year, and it doesn't look like a given that they'll even make it to the playoffs this year. That's a bummer. I guess it makes it even more urgent to try to get to 6, which is very much still in reach for them. They're only half a game out. So we'll see where they go, but let's jump over to your second.
Just one last thing, and we'll do this other team. The last one I think we have. I would have loved to get a David Griffin reaction cam when the team that his team beat in the playoffs last year when I got Kevin Durant. Just kind of curious about like what the reaction might have been in that sense, because they were a team that was like, could they be a Durant team? Do they trade Ingram and their picks and go get Durant and push? And they didn't, and I understand why. But then Phoenix goes and get him, and I just wonder how they might think about that. That's just where my brain.
His reaction was probably opening YouTube on his phone and watching Zion absolutely eviscerate the Suns in the fall when he was still healthy, and the 360 dunk that he did to completely embarrass them after eviscerating them. So he probably feels all right about that. And that speaks to how good Zion is, right? Like, this is a dude who, when he is healthy, nobody in the entire NBA can stop him. Nobody can guard him. He's just going to get to the foul line or finish at the basket, and you just have to sit there and pray, but he might not play. So we'll have to see.
All right. So my last one, Miami Heat. Don't know why I did this. I went through the league. I thought about some other teams. I was like, oh, we could talk about OKC. They're 11th in net rating and have a good offense and all this stuff. And we could get an OKC. OKC is the best offense in the league over the last 2 weeks. That's something. But I went to the Heat because I think this is the team that until I see them just get obliterated in the playoffs, I just won't write them off. And they add Kevin Love. And I don't Lord, no. I have no idea how much Kevin Love is going to help the Miami Heat. I don't know. The thumb, he says his thumb is healed. We'll see. It was not good at the end of his time in Cleveland. He's going back to number 42, which makes that a great Coachella jersey, by the way. Great. Miami, they need to bring the Vice jersey back just for that. I would buy that. But
I have one of the last remaining Wade Vice jerseys, so you should. If anyone wants it, get at me. Give me $400 and I'll part ways with it. But it's a collector's edition. They got rid of their best jersey ever. I don't understand.
Yeah, you gotta sell that for some Aram Layton, $600. That's Brendan's. That's the initial bid just for you, buddy. But
just double my monthly for the show and we'll do that.
Yeah. That sounds like a win to me. I get 2% for negotiating on there, but. I'll take a bottle of water at Summer League next time. Is what I'll take as my fee, Brendan. But Miami is going to be really annoying for whoever they get. They just are, and that is with Kyle Lowry not always being the best version of himself anymore. there's some defensive concerns, I think, but like they're going to be six. They're going to be somewhere between 5 and 7 in the East. They're going to get one of these good teams in the first round. They went and made a buyout addition that I think is going to help them, that I think does fit well if he's healthy, and will do some stuff for them. I'm curious to see what he looks like. And they're just like, they're going to be annoying for one of these teams. And I think the Knicks offense has kind of given them a little bit of an edge of late. But like, if you told me I had to pick one of the Nets, the Knicks, or the Heat, or the Hawks, like those 5 through 8 right now in the East, to be the most annoying for one of these teams in round one, it's Miami. And I want to see where they end up in the playoffs. Are they going to be in the play-in at 7? Get the Bucks in round 1? Do they end up like sliding into 6 and getting whoever the 3 seed is? Like, their positioning in the East is going to unlock like some interesting matchups in the East. And I think they're the Heat. They're annoying. And this is a boring answer, but like, they're going to be this team that is just like going to piss you off when you have to play in the playoffs. And I don't think they get out of the first round. I don't think they're going to be that level, but this team is just kind of always around. And Jimmy plus Bam plus the other guys they have plus Spo is just like, that's a really annoying lower seed team to play. And I can't quit Miami for whatever reason.
It is a team that has flown under the radar, and I think it's because they've underachieved, but we know that they're going to be there. Last year, somehow they were the 1 seed, and it felt the same way, where it's like they're surprising us yet again, even though they won all throughout the regular season. They're built to build over the course of the season and peak in the playoffs, and that's always going to be the case. I don't know if the Love thing will matter, but I do think Hero has had a much better season this year. I think that they've been able to kind of transform a little bit to a Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo team in a way that's going to be good for them long term, but also might just help in the present too, so that it's not just, hey, Jimmy, go win us a game, and Hero was just not very good in the playoffs last year. I think the funniest outcome to me with this, though, Chris, would be Miami getting to 6 and facing Philadelphia again, the team that they ousted in the second round last year, a team that they probably shouldn't have beaten. I'm sure Philly fans went into that series feeling pretty good, and then Miami wins it, and that would be the worst case scenario. The Sixers probably just want the smoothest possible first round opponent that they can get, and I don't know if they're going to get that. I think if they got the Nets or the Knicks, the Sixers would be totally fine. But the Heat would just be kind of hilarious to have to deal with. Sixers, it's just going to go 6 or 7. And Jimmy Butler falls into you and you get an MCL sprain, a la Kevin Durant, right? Like, they just play hard. It's physical. It sucks to do it. You got to fly all the way to Miami. That's kind of what I think is gonna happen. They're just gonna make somebody mad in the first round.
They have interesting games the rest of the regular season too. They play Philly 3 times between now and the end of the regular season. Once they play Milwaukee in their first game back. They play Milwaukee on Friday in Milwaukee in a nationally televised game. They have the Cavs twice in 3 days in South Beach, near the middle of March. And they play the Knicks twice. That's going to have some implications on 3 times. That's going to be really, really important for playoff seeding. They play the Nets as well. Like, they have all these teams that you kind of want to maybe see them against right now. They play, and they finish the season at Philly, at Washington, home versus Orlando. Like, they have interesting games down the stretch, and they're be in the thick of it. And like, if they get Philly in round 1, that's just that's drama right there. Jimmy back in Philly, and Embiid, like, all of that is just kind of there. And as you said, it's a rematch of last year as well. And like, they're just gonna be there and be really annoying. Am I right, Brendan, in saying that if you were to say one of those teams 5 through 8 is going to be the most annoying out in the playoffs, it is Miami, as good as the Knicks have been in a lot of ways?
Yes, I think so. And a lot of that for me, from the Knicks standpoint, when it comes to the playoffs, is I need to see it to believe it with Randall. He was not good in the playoffs the first time, although he was good in the first round, not as good in the second round when they lost. And then, he was good in the beginning of the first round. They ended up losing in the first round. He got worse as the series went along against Atlanta. I'll clarify that. I don't know if Brunson's going to help him. And then I think the other part is just they're a very young team, right? New York is winning with a lot of young guys, Grimes and Barrett, even Toppin, McBride. They have a lot of interesting young players quickly, but I don't know if I would say they're going to be great in their first playoff run. So, yes, I think it would be the Heat. That would be the team I'm trying to avoid. And we'll have to see if they do. Can we talk about the Thunder to close things out?
Yeah. This is the other team, along with Orlando, that I absolutely want to see, at least in the play-in, because I think it would be great for them to get the experience. I think Shea in that environment would be awesome. I think getting all of their young guys in that environment, get Mark their coach, whose last name I'm gonna butcher if I try to say it, like getting them that playoff experience would be a really, really good deal. They're 10th right now. They're ahead of the Jazz. They're ahead of the Blazers. They're ahead of the Lakers. They looked a lot better than the Lakers when we just saw them play the Lakers when LeBron broke the scoring record, just for the record. So, like, take that for what you will. The offense, as we said earlier, has been incredible of late. Would you take them or Minnesota?
I would take Minnesota because I do think there are times when Gobert just being humongous is an advantage, and that is one team where that is the case. And I do think... no, I'm not willing to say Anthony Edwards is better than Shea. I love Anthony Edwards, but Shea's better.
Shea's better. Yeah, I would take Shea.
But what's funny about that comparison, though, Chris, is Shea is set up, if they do get into the play-in, to have the type of breakout moment that Ant had in last year's play-in. Like, Ant arrived in last year's play-in game. He won, so that helped. But Shea would have that. Like, Shea's scoring 40 if they make the play-in, right? The fun thing about me to the Thunder with the Thunder is the foursome that they have, and Jalen Williams with a Y is kind of the flip guy, but Jalen without the Y, Lou Dort, Giddey, and Shea is about as fun of a 4-person combo in the NBA that there is. And then what's cool about it is it's super versatile too, right? You can go big with it. You can go small with it. They go small most of the time because they don't really have a center on the roster. But I just think the possibilities are so cool with them, and they're all good. It's not just like a freak experiment. It's like, no, they're actually winning. And Shea told us preseason, man, that they were done losing, and we all kind of laughed. And then here they are. They're not great, but they lost Chet, and they are still, they're ahead of Damian Lillard and LeBron James. Like, it could be a lot worse for them, and he lived up to what he said. I just love watching how weird and funky they are, and it starts with him, who we talked about with our kind of heading into the All-Star takeaways, just his unorthodox game. But it's the whole team, and it starts with him, but they're all weird, they're all funky, and they all fit together somehow, and they win games. It's really cool to watch. It just kind of shows you the NBA can still be different, even if it all feels a lot of the same.
Let's also just note that there are going to be some very unhappy people in the West.
Yeah.
Lakers don't make it, they're going to be unhappy. Dame doesn't make it, he's going to be really unhappy. I think Danny Ainge is probably fine if the Jazz don't make it. Okay, Thunder, I think, should be unhappy if they don't make it. Like, if the Wolves don't get in the playoffs proper, they're going to be unhappy. If the Warriors, somehow don't get in, that's going to be, they're going to obviously be very unhappy. Pelicans, I think, would have a lot of reason to be unhappy. And it's it looks like 7 through 13. I kind of would think that, Dallas, I haven't looked at their strength of schedule, but, you would think Dallas and the Suns probably pull away a little bit unless something happens that kind of messes things up, and that puts a lot of pressure on New Orleans and all these teams.
Dallas has the easiest schedule in the NBA, just for reference. They
okay,
are,
so they're
significantly the easiest too. So they're gonna surge, and we're all gonna overreact to Kyrie and everything, but they just have a cakewalk of a schedule.
Yeah, and then it's look. We could get Warriors Nuggets round 1 or Warriors Grizzlies round 1, and whoever loses that series is going to be really pissed off. There's going to be a lot of really grumpy teams in the West at the end of this year, whether they're in the play-in or not.
I hope it's young guys who just ruin it for everybody, because that's the most fun. If you have to lose, it is kind of cool to have it be somebody else's moment,
The game I wouldn't mind Thunder Blazers. I don't know how realistic that is, but in the play-in, just because, give me the redux of the Dame. Give me Shea in a spiritual way, getting a chance to go up against Dame after Dame hit one of the most famous and memed game winners we've seen in recent history. I wouldn't mind that from a fun perspective, or Thunder Warriors, Curry back in OKC, right? In that setting, which I don't think has happened since that maybe I don't think has happened since he hit that crazy shot. So give me that. Not in the playoffs, obviously, but
Yeah.
Obviously playing the regular season.
No, the West is going to leave a lot of people disappointed. It's going to be a moment for somebody. It's must-see TV. We could have just honestly gone all Western Conference teams and gotten to 6 here, I think, Chris. But that'll do it for today's show, guys. Follow us on social media wherever you are, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can also, of course, hit follow or subscribe if you're finding the show for the first time. All podcast platforms, including YouTube. While you're here, give us a 5-star rating. Hit that bell down below. Drop a comment, whatever you want to do. That'll wrap us up, and we will talk to you all next week.